I need the white leftists and tanky types to understand that everyone who critiques you isn't a liberal. You're just wrong. Many of you are just fucking wrong. I'm like, bro, it's okay to be wrong. What's not okay is when you've been proven to be wrong and ineffective time and again, and you don't change. You don't adjust. And all of these tanky types are just authoritarians who want power. Because, like, why is it that all of you worship people like Stalin, Mao, Trotsky, all of these terrible dictators throughout history? Like, why worship Stalin when Fred Hampton's right there? Why worship Mao when Malcolm X is right there? For every dictator you weirdos want to worship, there is an activist of color who is simply better. There were many POC throughout history who were much better advocates for the left than these dictators. These dictators who, in all honesty, are barely on the left to begin with. I don't encounter too many tankies who are sitting here living by the words of like Fred Hampton and the other individuals who I mentioned. I think this has to do with whiteness and the fact that a lot of y'all still have a lot of racism that you need to unpack. Keep in mind, racism isn't just when you say, oh, I hate people that don't look like me. It also manifests in this idea that people who don't look like you can't teach you anything.
Alright, I had originally already recorded an intro, but I wanted to talk about a video that Ethan Klein posted. In this video, because liberalism, it is absolutely ruining people's brains, but I saw this video that he posted, and I just want to say, in one of the TikToks I had posted in the argument that I was trying to make in defense of an Israel-Palestine take that he had, or when Hasan Piker and Ethan Klein had their little debate or whatever on I forget the name of the podcast they had together, but it was a really good podcast and it was going really well. And I think the entire reason why it fell apart was because of Ethan just gaining some sense of like ego and like trying to use this history as to like to get one up on people and feel smarter than people and like use his like kind of intellect, I guess, in a way, and like it kind of got like this know-it-all like aspect and way of going about the internet and making it about between two people and making huge drastic things about just two people, and then having a career like that, Hasan not talking about Ethan basically at all up until this point. And I don't think Hasan needs anyone to come to his defense, but I just think it's absolutely disgusting the way that Ethan Klein has turned around and just done what he does. It just seems like it just feels like a just perfect form of liberalism, because this guy has had so many controversies throughout his career, and everybody does who does this type of stuff, who does content creation. But for you to turn around because you got in a disagreement and then you wanted to cancel everything because you didn't want to come to an understanding is not a reason, okay? It's not a reason to just turn around on someone and then villainize them because you don't like them. And I don't even know. I don't know what your problem is. I don't know what people's problem is right now. I don't know why people have this sense of divisiveness right now so much. I don't understand what happened to critical thinking. I don't understand why we can't just have conversations. I was trying when I heard Ethan Klein and Hasan Piker debating about the Israel-Palestine situation, but Ethan was trying to humanize the Israeli civilians that do not agree with their government. We're talking about the Israeli citizens and Israeli civilians that do not agree with this conflict, that are just like you and I that are supporting Palestinians, okay? I thought he was trying to humanize those people, and I thought that's all what his perspective was for Hasan. And I thought Hasan responded pretty fucking well to that, although I never feel like Hasan has really ever like done that part of the humanization. But that's why I made a few videos, and that's why I was really astonished about the pushback that I got from having the take that I had, that you will see later on in this video. I just thought that divisiveness online is like really problematic. Now I'm starting to notice that it's like, okay, wait, this might actually be because how some content creators go about like talking about certain issues and dealing with certain conflicts or dramas or controversies that happen. And one big person that has to do that's in the political sphere of content creation, who has dipped his toe in, I guess, which was to H3 and Ethan Klein. There are people from H3 that I really like on there, but that is so scummy and so disgusting. Honestly, fuck Ethan Klein for turning around on like at least at this moment in my mind. That's what I feel like. I would love to have a conversation. That would be amazing. And like come to some why he cares so much about what someone else is doing that it does not talk about him. When both of your perspectives are great perspectives, and the whole point of that show and your podcast was to come to an understanding so that leftists had a better understanding at all parts of the left. And somehow, of course, in typical political fashion, the liberal ends up turning around on everyone and everything that he was good with, and everything that would have that was a good perspective, and then just shitting on everyone behind him because they disagree on one thing and they don't want to come to an understanding about it. The entire point of this video is to talk about how divisiveness is extremely problematic right now online, and it's obviously always going to be a thing. But I was going to make this video about division in the US based off of like just some dumb videos that I posted, okay? But this pissed me off. I watched this video this morning, okay? And that pissed me off, and I might make another video talking about Ethan Klein and how problematic of the way his shift has gone in the last year. Because that's insane, and it happens every single time that someone is a supposed leftist or liberal. They just end up agreeing with right-wing sentiment, and then completely because there's one conversation that they want to have that is a completely irrelevant conversation that they have had a million times before, or there's some supposed question or something that Ethan has brought up that Hasan has not answered yet. It's such absolute bullshit. I don't need to be like a parent here, and I don't mean to be jumping in the middle of that, but that pissed me the fuck off that he completely shifted his perspective exactly like we have seen from liberals just time and time again, and that is the entire point of this video. I also just want to say that just really disappointed in the way that Ethan Klein and H3 have just gone about what they do, I guess, and specifically Ethan in terms of his politics and the way how dangerous that like political liberalism has become is not a reason to send anyone hate or to like hate on anyone. So please don't do any of that. That's not what I'm trying to do here, to like, send any hate that direction. It just isn't it's exactly what I'm talking about in this video, like through presidential candidates. Now that's through the lens of like online content creation between like you and I, like things that people do that can actually be affected, and you actually are aware what you're doing. And you actually have to sit down in front of a camera like I'm doing right now, hit the record button, think about what you're gonna say, think about what you're gonna record, think about how it's gonna be edited, and then post it. It's not just like, oh, I'm just gonna hop on live and just say what's good. Like, no, like you had to sit down and kind of think about that for a minute, and then someone had to cut that up, especially when you're like in a studio like they are and like he is. That's bullshit. Don't act like you don't know what you're doing, okay? Classic liberalism. Oh, I'm just asking a question. I just want him to answer my question. I just want you to answer my question. Why won't you just answer my question?
Ew, brother. What's that? What's that, brother?
Let's get into this. Shit just feels like you can't have a conversation with people that disagree with you, especially in the United States, which is ironic. Free speech and all. Now, I've been meaning to have this conversation for a while, and I probably will over and over again throughout this channel, because it's one of my most important things, like being understanding, not being divisive, but also getting your point across, like being understanding and not being divisive. I think we're all capable of that. I myself have changed my entire perspective. I had an entirely different outlook on life when I was in high school and college, or at least the beginning of college, and I have had the ability in my own life to change my perspective, especially politically. And I think that's kind of what I want to have a conversation about today, is why things feel so divisive politically. Obviously, I think that everyone is aware that, you know, these policies are kind of insane that these candidates are running on. There's a couple things between, not really much on one side, but there's a few things that, like, you can understand are good things for us. But everything else is kind of like dog shit and not appealing to the average American. So I just want to come on here And I've scripted this video out. It's the first one I've ever done like this before, so I apologize if this was a little different. But I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while because I think it's extremely important. It's a little bit vague, but I've never really scripted a video out. And I think that having a conversation about this, I'm not really gonna be taking anything away. Really, I'm not gonna be making any big, substantial points, but I do wanna have a conversation about MLK and the white moderate. Talk about Obama a little bit. John Fetterman out of Pennsylvania had a big impact on both when he was running and when he got into office as a reason why, and I think that's where we'll start off today. For my change outlook on like division and how politics operate and kind of how things work in this country. I know as I started out at the beginning of this video, I said that like, does it feel like things are extremely divisive? I'm basically just gonna be leaving you with a ton of questions today. I don't think there's any way that we can really solve these issues without people, and moreover Americans, having some deep considerations and thoughts and reflections upon the use of rhetoric that's going on, the way the media is operating, the way things have gone, how your life has been affected, and where you see your future going, or where you see the future of this country. Because this sounds like a big concept, but it's really not. I want to talk about a bunch of simple things, and I really think it's important for people to understand the white moderate and MLK's speech on that, because I think people whitewash that and whitewash the civil rights movement and think that that's all over. And especially with what's going on in Israel-Palestine, there was a take I had recently that's also really inspired me to make this, because of one video I made basically saying that regardless of Iran's response and Hezbollah's response to Israel, I think it is important to remember that there are still civilians potentially dying, and that Israeli civilians do not agree with this conflict. I don't know what people don't understand about the fact that you cannot justify violence upon a civilian population because their government is committing terrible atrocities, and blame that civilian population for their government's miss or inaction. Civilian populations are not their government. And there is nuance to a lot of these topics, and there's a lot of nuance in the world. It's nothing is black and white, and I think that's what we have to have an understanding, and I just want to establish here. So I'm sorry for rambling, but let's get into this.
Bella ciao, 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 partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. E se io muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, 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 e se muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire, e seppellire lassù in montagna, oh bella ciao, 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 seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fior. Tutte le genti che passeranno, oh bella ciao, 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 e le genti che passeranno ti diranno che bel fior, e questo è il fiore del partigiano, oh bella ciao, 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 questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà, questo è il fiore del partigiano.
Alright, I want to come on here and just say, I apologize if this is a little awkward. I haven't recorded a video with a script since fucking college, and it's been a minute since I was in college. Okay, illiterate ass. So with that being said, this video, I might be looking down at my computer here every once in a while because I have a laundry list of notes, and this is a really important conversation that I think we all need to have. And I want to, if I've got to read off of this script, well then guess what, bitch? It's just like fucking watching the news. I'm reading off of a teleprompter. You can just kind of tell that I'm reading off of a teleprompter, okay? I'm just giving you a heads up in advance. Now, with that being said, let me start this out. To start this video, I thought we could have a conversation about a couple of TikToks I posted. Okay, I'm just curious, did anybody else notice as a leftist that whenever you start criticizing liberals on the internet, or like liking anti-liberal shit, or whatever the fuck, and anti-fascist shit, that for some reason the algorithm starts to think that you're a reactionary conservative? I don't know what people don't understand about the fact that you cannot justify violence upon a civilian population because their government is committing terrible atrocities and blame that civilian population for their government's miss or inaction. Civilian populations are not their government. So, originally, I had posted a TikTok that was basically asking the question, because I like to get kind of a consensus every once in a while to like what people think and how people view certain things. If you start liking anti-liberal or anti-conservative content, criticizing liberal or conservative content, somehow the algorithm sends you down a right-wing pipeline at a rate now that is almost unimaginable. Now, when I posted that, I wasn't saying, I think for I think because there's a lot of young people on TikTok, I think it got misinterpreted. And some people thought somehow that, that makes me a fascist or that makes me like not a good enough leftist. I don't know, because it was really strange considering where the climate is. Specifically, I mean, well, climate change is pretty shit right now. But that's not what we're talking about. The political climate in this world right now, and some of the responses I got were pretty telling. What's up? Editing him in here. I guess when I was making this video, I forgot to mention that there were some good responses. And because this video is about divisiveness and kind of reducing that, I didn't want to just only touch on the bad stuff. So there's some good responses on screen right now. And these are the kind of responses I'm usually looking for that are like informative. Obviously, nothing is ever gonna be perfect. But removing the divisive rhetoric from discourse or like the accusatory rhetoric from your discourse or from your language, no matter what you're doing, reduces tensions overall and kind of like allows your point to get across much easier and to be understood much better because you're not just kind of attacking people. So let's get back to the video. And keeping those responses in mind, I think it's extremely important that we have a discussion about the white moderate or liberal in general. But specifically because I'm American, I'll be discussing the American liberal or moderate and how dangerous of an ideology it has been and will be to the future of American politics, and also trying to call out white people and white responses. I hope that isn't triggering for you. Keep in mind, many people have already made videos on this subject matter, but I want to have this discussion through my own lens. Just a fucking normal ass kid in America. I'm definitely not trying to do any groundbreaking work here. I'm not trying to do anything special. I'm simply just trying to point out the shit that we already know, shit that's obvious, and that you can get from just doing un poqueño más reading. Just you know, bare minimum, right? Just kind of what the ladies are looking for right now in men, in a man to date, which is kind of hard to find. The bare minimum, right? Isn't that right, ladies? Just be nice to, if you could, you know, find a guy that is, you know, baseline, bare minimum, right? Anyway, let's move on. We're also going to be taking a look back at some relevant civil rights leaders, as have said pertaining to the white liberal or liberal American. There are some audio clips and discussions I have previously posted and shown to you on this page. Probably the most incoherent, incohesive display on YouTube since Fred. Honestly, that was a dog shit awful time for the internet, but kind of do miss the simplicity of it. But anyway, hopefully I can do a little bit better job at explaining some of this shit to you, because it's just fucking annoying. Now, unless you don't have a brain, making synapse connections shouldn't be too hard. But since I understand that there are people out there that are incapable of doing so, that are not mentally challenged in any way, hopefully hearing this shit from a slightly autistic, high-functioning kid with severe ADHD, ADD, and anxiety that has a pretty face and makes you feel weird about your sexuality might help you understand the idea I'm trying to get across here. Might. I said might. I did not say I will. I am not a miracle worker. Love to be, though. That would be amazing. I just go, wow, re-educated. Brrr. You know, like, that'd be nice. But, you know, hopefully, we can all understand that as a pink and white Irish American, born and raised in one of the 13 colonies, I am in no way trying to make you question your whiteness or political ideology. Rather, I'm hoping you have an open mind and the ability to laugh and desire to understand while being honest about your bias or your convictions. I'm not really expecting you to... I do want you to change your mind walking away from this video. I do. But, as I said before, I'm a fucking dumbass, dude. So I don't necessarily know if I can do that for you. I do want to come out and apologize in advance. It looks as though I totally forgot to set up my microphone before I started recording. So for the rest of the video, we'll continue from here. I'd like to start out and say that as much as I try to portray myself as intelligent and I have a college degree in media literacy, I love history, I love politics and deep discussions on said subjects, or just deep discussions on like any subject matter at all. I cannot stress this enough. Okay? I can't. I am a dumb ass. I am a dumb ass. I am a dumbass. Me, am a dumbass. And this is only introductory level shit. So don't let me get like too ahead of myself. I really love to just get really caught up in having way too much fun with these discussions, and I get kind of deep and philosophical. I probably inevitably will, but that's what these notes are for. Now I just want to put a little disclaimer here for you guys.
I am not an accelerationist. I do not wish to see people's material conditions worsen in the short term on the hope that they will get so bad that things will swing the other way in some imprecise future. That doesn't work. I am also not policing what you choose to do. Vote blue or don't vote blue. If you live anywhere here, it probably doesn't even matter. And no matter where you live, it'll usually only matter a tiny bit. Just enough to make it worth getting it over with and voting. But probably not much more. Not for nothing, voting sucks because the blue team sucks. I know that. I know, as you can see from this video about the ratchet effect I made a couple months ago, that voting for the lesser evil doesn't do anything for progress, and that our politics move further right over time thanks to the increasing power of corporate interest since the takeover of neoliberalism in the 80s. That sucks too. I also know that letting presidents go from far-right, fascist, proto-fascist, whatever, to the same guy but worse 4 years later, and at whatever pace they dictate, is bad too. Worse even. I am well aware of all that. I'm not gonna try to deny any of these claims in this video. Stopping some form of far-right politics with regular right-wing politics doesn't make anybody happy except those on the right.
Politics should never be discussed solely on the basis of who you are going to vote for in the ballot box.
In America, we resolve our difference at the battle box.
Battle box!
That's how we do it, at the battle box, not with bullets.
At the battle box!
The power to change America should always rest in the hands of the people, not in the hands of the...
Politics have always, until recent history, always been a discussion and a discourse amongst the people of a nation in democracy. Which, unfortunately, democracy has not fixed everything. However, that is the importance of this country and the freedoms we have as Americans, especially on this platform. Our ability to have conversations and agree to disagree, especially not to harm those whom we may disagree with. It's pretty fucking dope. It's not something to be taken advantage of or taken for granted, considering its sanctity in modern politics. We should also be making sure our disagreements do not come at the expense of another person's existence or right to exist. It is objectively strange that only in recent history of elections things have become so divided and tensions so raw that we can no longer sit around and watch presidential election debates together as family or friends. Even though I was a little kid, I remember debate season being a big thing. I used to fucking love debate season, at the very least in my family and hometown. So much so that we would invite people over or go out with friends and have discussions around the table. Obviously, not me. I was a child and invested in Pokemon and comics and Avatar. I was not, but I do, especially in school, okay? And I remember this very vividly in middle school, right before, I think it was in the time period before I moved and switched schools. It's why it was like a very, like, I remember all that shit, because I was like, we're moving? This is my entire life, even though we had already moved a bunch of times in my town. Anyway, that's my story. We'll talk about that another time. In school, especially, I vividly remember being in social studies class, and we would obviously have, like, when you're a fucking kid in middle school, no one understands politics, and the kid that does is just a weirdo. It's just how it is. But you still, like, listen to them, kind of. They're usually, at that age, kind of might have some problematic views, but whatever. Like, we were fucking kids having, like, strange, childish arguments about politics and social studies class that we didn't really fully understand, but it was important. Like, I remember it. It was vivid for me. And specifically, it was around the Obama and Romney election cycle. I think that was when Mitt Romney was going up against Barack Obama. And obviously, there were racial undertones whenever Obama was running and during that time period. And there always have been in this country. But there was an ability to call it out and have a discussion, especially when we were kids. Like, we could see that shit. We could see a fucking racial comment, even in the fucking white community, dude. Like, there were a couple black kids in our school, so we could, you could fucking, you're childish. You're not fucking brain dead, right? Like, something else to be said for other places around the country, I guess. But seemingly, we were able to come to a mutual understanding and agreement. And I remember this from when I was 8 till I was like 14 or 15, because that was right before Trump. Right before Trump, and all the conversations we could have politically, where we could have a discussion, we could have a disagreement. And now, obviously, I was a child. We were children. If you're watching this video, you're probably my age. We were not. You're not established you're not fucking paying attention to shit. You're just existing. But, watch the news, gather some information, whatever the fuck, you got bare bones, we could talk about some things. And again, you could have a discussion, we could have disagreements, and we could come to agreements and disagreements about things we could call things out. You could have normal, like I said, you could have normal discussions. Okay? But, big but here. I say all this to say that politics are not meant to be divisive or confusing. Because they're not. Again, when I was a kid, like I just was describing to you, we could have these discussions on end. Okay? It would not stop. And it would go, and then the conversation would lead into sports. Like, the conversation would just die out and delve into some other subject. But, obviously, things in politics can get tense. And you're not going to understand politics or policy if you don't read. Like, you're not going to have that understanding, so you're not going to be able to have a conversation. What should be happening is with someone that doesn't understand is they should be able the ability to ask questions, the ability to come to an understanding, instead of just disagreeing because of a vibe check. Like, that's not politics, that's not history, that's not educated, that's the opposite of what you're doing in school. But obviously, things in politics can get tense, and you're not going to understand politics or policy if you don't read, but it's not meant to divide. Politics are not meant to divide. We're meant to have an understanding of politics, and it should be politicians having a vast and deeper understanding of politics and political history in order to win your vote. Not just them selling you some fucking market strategy on what they're going to do. I don't want you to sell me your policies like a businessman. I want you to describe to me what you're doing and how that is going to affect this country. How that is going to affect the average American's bottom line. Or the average American's existence. Just how is that going to benefit the average American? Not the way that it is now. Where the people and intellectuals that understand politics, or where people and the average person or intellectuals understand politics more than politicians. Why do us as Americans listening to intellectuals see the intellectuals as being smarter than the politicians? Obviously they're intellectual, they're intellectuals, they know more. But why do the politicians know nothing like a business salesman? Would you go to school for journalism and just learn how to write a fucking title? What are you doing? I'm sorry, anyone who's a journalist major. You're doing important work. Keep it up. Politicians are not meant to be presenting you with gifts and things you want, like an old-timey traveling salesman. They are there to they are there to be put into a position to provide for the people, as well as communicate thoroughly with the people. Politicians are supposed to win your vote. It is not the people's job to vote, especially when they get no incentive from voting, especially in recent history, especially amongst minorities, especially amongst, moreover, the Muslim population, the black and brown population, and the Hispanic and immigrant population in this country has no incentive to vote, and every incentive actually not to, or vote against their best interest. It's not your job as an American to vote. It is the politician's job, especially American politicians' job in this democratic system that we have, to win your vote. Not just vote for me because the other guy's bad. Vote for me because the other person's worse for you. That's not a policy. I'm not going to judge you on who you vote for as long as you're not voting for Donald Trump. Never mind black and brown people never really getting any sort of incentive to go to the ballot box, like I just said.
That's how we do it.
With all this being said, let's get into a discussion With all this being said, let's get into the discussion of liberalism and how we can manage this period of discontent in the time being until progress eventually and hopefully be made at some point in the near future, things will always get worse before they get better, and it seems like things are getting really bad. So let's hope that things turn around for the better really fast. Probably not the way it's gonna go. Well, first, I think it would be important to define liberalism, or what I mean when I talk about a moderate or a liberal. So, what exactly do I mean? First, we formally must define what it means to be a moderate.
But just so we're on the same page before we go any further, let me be extra clear. Liberalism is the default ideology in the imperial core. The average person ends up with a liberal perspective by osmosis. And if you feel like this is an attack on you personally, please don't feel that way. Everyone should be capable of changing their perspective when presented with new evidence. If you're not, that's a good sign you may have been indoctrinated into a dangerous ideology. But that's what this video is about. As Kwame Ture said in his 1969 book, The Pitfalls of Liberalism, what a liberal really wants is to bring about change which will not in any way endanger his position.
A formal definition for moderate is a noun, and it is a person who holds moderate views, especially in politics. Moreover, modern liberalism in the United States is based on the combined ideas of civil liberty and equality with support for social justice. It is one of the two major political ideologies of the United States, with the other being conservatism. Moderates identify as neither liberal nor conservative, holding a mix of beliefs that doesn't necessarily correspond to either group, but they typically believe that issues are too complex for simple partisan solutions to work, and that the two major political parties are too ideological. Now, that might be a little confusing, but basically, moderates and liberals kind of have the same understanding of politics. It's just a couple of policy issues here and there, and not definitively choosing a side or political party that they vote for. They're typically the people, and the people that I'm having this discussion about, is the people that are in the middle at all times, or label themselves as independent. Right? Now, if this doesn't help you understand, then here is an argument that Malcolm X puts forward as an example of liberalism, which in my opinion is pretty accurate, and one in which I would agree.
But being friendly and being a friend, I think, are two different things. I think there are many whites who act friendly toward a fox, acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate. Now, whenever it takes a stoppage of something that's going to affect the white man, you find the white liberal absent. But when it involves something that primarily will affect the best interests of black people, and black people only, then that white liberal is present. I'm suspicious of whites who join those and always have to be in the lead, who always have to be the head, who always have to be at the top in new organizations. Those whites who really have the interest of blacks at heart, let them give some advice to some Negroes and stand on the sideline. But don't join the organization and then get at the head of it and pose as a friend of Negroes.
Now, we must ask ourselves, what policies best represent, or maybe moreover rather, who is an example of modern liberalism that we can point to. And well, unfortunately, as much as I love this man, and you guys probably do too, are probably a few others we could point to, especially in recent American history. And although America loves this man, and as I do, love those sexy beauty marks, I love that beautiful smile, that charismatic tone, along with his ability to hit a fadeaway jumper. So beautiful. This will obviously be controversial of me to say.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Barack Hussein Obama.
Something ain't right.
Now, we should understand here that Obama has even said in his own words in an interview in 2012 with a local Florida network that if he had run for president in the 80s, he would be considered a moderate Republican. Mind you, on a question in which he was asked what he thinks about the people who believe he wants to impose socialism on the country. Now I'm going to read you from The Hill, an article from The Hill. President Obama is literally so moderate that his policies back in the 80s literally would have been conservative. Said his economic policies are, quote, so mainstream, he'd be considered a moderate Republican in the 1980s. In a Thursday interview with a Miami-based local television station, Obama said he thinks few people believe he wants to impose socialism on the country. Quote, the truth of the matter is that my policies are so mainstream that if I had set the same policies that I had back in the 1980s, I would be considered a moderate Republican, end quote, he told Noticias Univision 23 in a White House interview. Quote, I mean, what I believe in is a tax system that is fair, end quote, he continued. Quote, I don't think government can solve every problem. I think that we should make sure that we're helping young people go to school. We should make sure that our government is building good roads and bridges and hospitals and airports so that we have a good infrastructure. I do believe that it makes sense that everyone in America, as rich as this country is, shouldn't go bankrupt because someone gets sick. So the things I believe in are essentially the same things your viewers believe in, end quote, Obama said. Conservatives frequently raise concern that Obama has turned the U.S. towards socialism. How'd that turn out? Sorry, I had to come out of the article there for a second. Pointing to Obama's healthcare law and the stimulus bill the president championed shortly after taking office. After Obama won re-election, former GOP vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin on Fox News, that was amazing time period, said his win would be catastrophic for the U.S. economy because, quote, Obama's socialist policies will destroy America's working class as he outsources opportunities, end quote. Yeah, how's that outsourcing going? It hasn't necessarily stopped, and Trump also didn't stop that outsourcing, so that was amazing. But anyway, it continues. Obama made the latest comments in response to a question about why he did well in the election with Cuban American voters in Florida who could be concerned about the U.S. moving towards socialism because of their experiences with Fidel Castro. I do not know what the hell they are talking about. It is literally just because Obama was a black man. He is literally in this same article saying that he is a moderate Republican. Or if he was running years ago in the 80s, then he would be a moderate Republican. Let me finish the article. Quote, I don't know that there are a lot of Cubans or Venezuelans, Americans who believe that, end quote, Obama said. Now, you should ask yourself why socialism is bad and do some research on that. We can have that discussion in a later video. For now, let's stay on topic with the white moderate and providing an example and definition to go off of. Then we can get into why or what exactly it was that may have become so divisive in recent years. Because as you can see, with how liberal and fucking basically a Republican-ass Obama was, you still had people calling him a socialist because he was a black man running for president and tried to give Americans health care in the most basic form. Tried to give underprivileged Americans access to healthcare in the most basic form. I mean, it didn't even end up working out, and they gutted it anyway. But hey, man, I guess what we're getting from Obama was healthcare equals socialism, or better yet, free healthcare and or access to healthcare equals socialism, which correlates with Obama, which means socialism bad because black men give underprivileged American healthcare. Please tell me where this makes sense. And Cubans were he got like a large percentage of the Cuban vote. In order for us to keep moving this conversation forward, we need to go back to a civil rights leader who had his own grievances with the white moderate, and where those grievances came from, with what exactly his issues were with the liberal or moderate, specifically the white American, the white boy. In 1963, MLK was arrested for a series of anti-segregation protests. Now, I'm assuming to those who are somewhat knowledgeable on MLK, you probably are aware of this letter. In protests in Birmingham, and was jailed in Birmingham, Alabama. In response to his protest, 8 local white clergymen had asked him to make a, quote, call for unity or moderation with the segregationists in order to stop the means for progress and come to some sort of order. This was the liberals' request of MLK. This is what the liberals at the time in 1963, when Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested in Birmingham, Alabama, this was what the liberals, they wanted him to do. They wanted to basically side with the segregationists, moderate his message, and take a step back and move towards that aspect of progress and drop his, basically stop his ask for freedom, right? And stop doing the civil rights movement. People just think that MLK was just assassinated randomly. No, he was one of the most hated and controversial figures, not only of his time, but in politics, okay? He was not beloved until after his assassination. And even then, still wishy-washy. Now, why did Martin Luther King write the letter? Well, to a lot of historians, much of this letter is to criticize those who were advocating moderation at a time when the struggle demanded direct action. So it's exactly like the Black Lives Matter movement, when everyone basically criticizing Colin Kaepernick. It's kind of the same thing, because at a time when police brutality was at an all-time high, and shit was just really bad, and the country still fucking is. Nothing really has changed. We're still kind of in the same spot. You had people villainizing people that were part of BLM or on the side of Colin Kaepernick simply because they were misunderstanding the message. They didn't even know what his message was. They were misinformed about why Colin Kaepernick or BLM was happening or what they were doing. For example, what BLM was, because it was entirely misrepresented by the media. And these are all things that you can easily fact check and do for yourself. I'm not seeding any information. This is all just as long as you know what a keyword is and you have some sense of media literacy. You did. I'm assuming you know how to use a computer. You probably know how to Google these things. MLK had read this article and decided to respond with his now infamous letter from Birmingham jail, in which he broadcast from jail to the media. That's why there's an audio recording of it. He requested that the local radio station record this and put it out there. I think he either went there or they came to him. I'm not 100% sure. That's not really important. Regarding the white moderate, MLK states that he has grown discontent and is, quote, gravely disappointed for the white moderate or liberal who is, quote,
who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises anew to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice, and that when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. I had hoped that white moderates would understand that the present tension in the South is a necessary phase of the transition from an obnoxious negative peace in which the more passively accepted his unjust plight to a substantive and positive peace in which all men will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. Actually, we who engage in nonviolent direct action are not the creators of tension. We merely bring to the surface the hidden tension that is already alive. We bring it out in the open where it can be seen and dealt with, like a ball that can never be cured so long as it is covered up, but must be open with all its ugliness to the natural medicines of air and life. Injustice must be exposed with all the tension its exposure creates to the light of human conscience and the air of national opinion before it can be cured.
What was MLK advocating for in order to understand the tensions today? Well, Kamala Harris is a continuation of this ideal, or perfect moderate liberal. She uses Obama's framing of politics with hope and change in order to spread her own, which is not hers, but rather Joe Biden's version of liberal progressivism, which is a term I think I just made up due to its inherent contradiction and policies that do not align with the progressive values. I understand that I just made up the term liberal progressivism because, like I just said, it inherently, you can't be liberal and progressive. That doesn't work. It's liberalism is kind of about like, all right, we got money. I want to stay where I'm at. You know, you feel me, type thing. I would like to say that before we go any further, okay, I do respect. Okay, that I want to make this clear, okay, before we go any further, that I do respect Kamala Harris in this regard for making a well-regarded and guarded effort, hopefully, albeit successful attempt, to make the discourse less divisive. And we kind of saw that in, like, the Walls J.D. Vance thing. That was very weird, though. I didn't like that. That should have been a little more divisive, especially whatever. Debates are not supposed to be agreeing with each other so much. Ugh. But again, this is about making things less divisive. So maybe not in other areas, but specifically this issue of dealing with politics through a lens of a non-personal attacks and actually discussing politics and who is the best fit to lead and their policies. This is commendable of her in this regard because, like, the other side's not really focused on that. And it's odd that it took them being called weird and, like, being persistently called weird in media for the right-wing messaging kind of to change a little to be, I'm gonna say palatable, but it's obviously not palatable, okay? Now, regardless that is commendable and that I appreciate that from Kamala, it is commendable of her. However, the Democratic Party's use of anti-immigration sentiment and unconditional support of Israel is an example of how these policies and advocations do not align with progressive politics or with Trump's baseless claims that she is a progressive Marxist candidate because of her father, I'm assuming. Like, the only place that you're getting, or you could possibly say that Kamala Harris, if Kamala Harris is doing socialism, I don't know what to tell you. How That is just so, that is like such a obvious like misunderstanding. You're just saying you don't understand how the political spectrum works when you say that, okay? She literally like does not on speaking terms with her father for her political stances. Okay? That is the entire reason why they're not on speaking terms. I believe if you're going to have a basic understanding of the policies in these regards of liberals and conservatives who are usually in agreement moderately in both of these alignments, had any sort of ability to think for themselves and listen to what these two candidates are saying, they would immediately align themselves with Kamala Harris or realize that neither one of these candidates are all that different. So at the very least, if both liberals and conservatives like could take a step back and analyze these two candidates and analyze seriously like supposedly with what these liberals and conservatives want, I think that they would both come to the conclusion that Kamala Harris is best for their best interest, because that she is basically running on like giving. She's not changing shit. She's just doing Biden 2.0, and nothing really changed from Biden to Trump. So she's just doing kind of the same thing. There's just like a couple things that are different, and then they're like this immigration thing is just really, I don't know why they're none of this is gonna change. Okay, the election is like right around the corner, so maybe it will, because Kamala's losing in the polls a little bit right now, doing a little rough at the time when I'm recording this video. But however, because Kamala is a black woman, most conservatives and liberal moderates have a hard time finding themselves in agreement or aligned with her campaign simply because she's a black woman, or in their eyes, a DEI hire who does not belong here. She is DEI. You cannot do this. Which, again, goes back to the sentiment that these civil rights leaders put forward in regards to liberalism and the dangers of carelessness for progressive policy, in which the moderate would rather align themselves with some sort of lesser evil or negative peace, as MLK referred to it, rather than engage in necessary or direct action in order to bring about some sense of justice. Now, if this country has moved forward and Obama actually was some sort of socialist progressive leader, or someone like Jimmy Carter who was actually progressive but again kinda didn't do anything, we as Americans kinda need to ask ourselves a few questions. Why have things become so divisive? How come Obama ran a progressive campaign on infrastructure and healthcare and raising wages in 2008 and 2012, bringing 66% of young voters out to vote in the biggest voter turnout for voters under the age of 30 since 1976, and then never followed through with any of those progressive policies? And since we have never seen a considerable young voter turnout, aside from the 2020 election, which is an anomaly due to COVID and easier access to voting, and neither candidate was progressive aside from Biden being pro-union, Americans got Obamacare, which wasn't great, but it was something, and then had it removed once again during Trump's presidency. Never mind when any politician over the last 30 to 40 years starts talking about fixing or building up infrastructure. I mean, bro, do we have to mention the fucking Baltimore bridge collapse? I mean, look what's happening in North Carolina. Look what's happening in the entire Southeast right now. Look at Florida at all times. Look at North Carolina right now. Look at the entire Southeast where that hurricane hit, where Hurricane Helen hit. Or any towns or cities surrounding or in New York City, Philadelphia, LA, New Jersey, Boston, Chicago, Baltimore. I could keep going, etc., etc. Every road and bridge in this country is falling apart and rarely gets renovated. I could talk about how in my home of Cape Cod, which has plenty of blue-collar workers, construction guys, pavers, etc., they could easily get these roads fixed. There has not been a single thing changed. And the only roads that get fixed are in nice neighborhoods, not even necessarily areas downtown or where there need to be better infrastructure or certain driveways, which due to terrible road conditions, people continuously will have to keep paying for out of pocket because the larger that this issue is that the roads were not designed properly. So there is not proper water runoff, leading to a reoccurring issue with the roads and driveways needing to constantly be repaved over. Never mind the fact that the Cape is just outdated building wise and needs to be renovated and updated ASAP. If all politicians like Obama, Carter, or even Kamala Harris, all of which I have mentioned are supposedly progressive candidates, where's the progress? I don't see any. I don't see shit. Nothing has changed. And if we do not see progress like these politicians have promised, like if we haven't seen any of these promises, or was even relatively acted upon, how come the average American's living conditions keep getting worse and worse? If this country is so divided politically and on the basis of progress or negative socialist changes to our country, and we have supposedly seen these changes, why can no one attest to these changes? How come average Americans on both sides of the aisle have seen no direct changes to their daily lives other than brief moments of relief? Like during COVID, when some people could receive money, and then immediately this, like in the middle of it, ripping that away to no longer have access to that after and it wasn't even after, it was during COVID. They were like, sorry, we're not doing this anymore. If America has progressed towards socialism and we have fixed all of these forms of hatred or bigotry, then why are we still having the same discussions as intellectuals from the early 1960s? Why do black, Palestinian, Muslim, Jewish, brown, and Hispanic people feel less and less safe in this country? Maybe more safe where they're coming from, but why they feel less safe after getting here, after being here for a while? They feel less and less safe. Why are things becoming more and more divided and Americans losing less and less rights every day if things have changed for the better or towards some socialist or progressive society in this country? Well, if it isn't obvious, it's because of the white moderate who would rather align themselves with order, or in other words, is more likely fall into an argument of aesthetics and end up defending fascism or authoritarian rule due to their necessity or affinity for an abscess of tension, as MLK put it, rather than a display of justice or change, for that matter. Never mind committing justice, okay, or showing that we have justice in the society, but just making some sort of change that is good. Don't see it. If we are to say that Americans have seen some sort of substantial change since the 1960s, aside from better cars, which are more expensive and designed to fall apart, as well as for you having to spend more money to continuously get these new vehicles fixed, more, better, and easier access to information and entertainment, or a clogged list of channels and platforms to choose from, which is an illusion because you just end up falling asleep due to the magnitude of options to choose from, which I want to reiterate is not necessarily a bad thing. I love having access to all sorts of amenities and shit. I'm a capitalist in that sense. I don't mind having an unlimited amount of options when I go to the grocery store. But I think it's a little excessive right now. Toys and access to technology, again, when it comes to toys, information, entertainment, style, fashion, and tech, I think people are kind of cool with that shit as long as it's ethical. You feel me? Like, I don't think Americans give a fuck that they have so much access to shit, but it's the fact that, like, the average person has less and less access to that shit, and it's only being awarded to those who have money or are privileged in society. Specifically a Western society. I still have a fucking PS4, dude. But then why are we discussing the same issues? If racism and bigotry have been eradicated, why do POCs, why do people of color in this country still have to have conversations with their children about how to carry or hold themselves when going out at night alone, or with friends, driving, showing up to school, whether they get bullied or potentially shot from a school shooting? That's just kids now. That's not black and brown kids. That's just kids now. However, it's just heightened with black and brown kids because none of those underlying issues have changed. Interacting with the police or just existing. The only thing substantial that has changed, which Trump and conservatives as well as the media from time to time still to say the opposite is that crime is actually down all over the country. As it pertains to these immigrants or Venezuelans in Colorado, I don't think Haitians, Haitians in Colorado or Ohio, I don't even know. Dude, there's so many different fucking groups of people that they have villainized lately. If you pay attention to conservative media, they would have you thinking that crime is actually like way fucking up, and that things have gotten insane and out of control in this country, which I mean they're not totally wrong about. Like, shit is crazy, but it's not the fucking immigrants that are crazy. They're just coming here to work, dude. You radicalize so many Americans to be like rabid dogs towards like immigrants or people of color or anyone that looks different than them, sounds different, disagrees with them. However, this is why the white moderate or liberalism is so important to America and its media apparatus, as well as the US holding on to power. The more you can manipulate people to believe in a narrative that you are trying to set or push onto another group of people or certain subject matter, the easier it is for you to not only control that narrative, but also get people to act on that narrative. And that is where the dangerous importance of these recent moderate political leaders in this country calling for the abdication or removal of education, specifically by conservative pundits, along with moderates on both sides as well. We could get into another more in-depth discussion about how liberalism and moderate political values lead to the rise of fascism and Hitler and in Nazi Germany, and how liberalism led to the start of World War II. However, I feel as though that is a discussion, once again, for another video. I want to finish and leave you with this. If America and progressives have been successful in their approach to politics and successfully sowed the idea of socialism into the minds of the liberal American, if the moderate has been unsuccessful in its sow of division amongst people invested in politics, if the moderate has not succeeded time and time again in modern American politics, and we truly are close to the so-called United Socialist States of America, please, I implore you to ask yourself why your material conditions have not significantly changed, or changed in general. Why are our roads still shit? Why are there buildings that still look like they did in 2004, but rather much worse conditions, and that were designed in the 1960s and 70s? Why does healthcare keep getting more and more expensive? Why do your gas prices keep rising? Why do your taxes and grocery prices keep going up? Why is there less access to community than ever before? What happened to after-school programs for underprivileged kids like myself growing up? Why have you as an American, specifically as a young American, especially those who have graduated from college, never seen any sort of debt relief, only the ability to pause your loans, only to have them increase exponentially? I implore you, if America truly has progressed exponentially since 1960, specifically 1963, then why, as Americans, are we constantly asking the same question and discussing the same topics? Have we become more progressive or more moderate? Look at previous Democratic Party elections, or hell, even previous debates from the last 60 years. And again, ask yourself, is this nation more moderate now than before? Or is this nation more progressive than 1963? And I would argue that the United States is heading in a worse direction and is more divided than in 1963 and is less progressive than 1963. However, there is now more than ever an ability to bridge the gap and divide between America. And I implore you, I know I keep saying I implore you, I do, I beg you, I really beg you, and I really ask of you, please make the effort when it comes to politics. Try to be more understanding, open-minded, and committed to coming to an understanding, rather than understanding who is right or wrong. When it comes to politics and history, you're not supposed to be right or wrong. There are rights and wrongs, but the main objective is to come to an understanding, a mutual understanding. And you can't do that with everything, but that is the goal, and it is important to remember that goal. Liberals and conservatives, especially moderates on both sides, love to design arguments and discussions around which of the two is better. I am not asking you to do such a thing. I'm not asking you to tell me or to believe in something better or that something is better. Obviously, you do your own, you're gonna deduct what you will from that. And it is obvious which is better for you and what is best for in your best interest, in your family and friends' best interest, and what is not. But rather, I am asking you to make an actual attempt to understand the moderate and earnestly, honestly analyze and look at where this country is at right now and truly ask ourselves, is this country any different? And the answer is a resounding and unfortunate no. But that does not mean these things cannot change or will not change. Change is ultimately inevitable. And I am going to leave you now with this. Officially, I'm sorry for yapping so much, but I'm gonna leave you with this. If you don't want this country to end up more divisive, I implore you, please keep your mind open, your ability to laugh, and your desire to understand and be understood close to your heart and mind when discussing politics or history, and always remember that we are all humans. Come on. Hurt people hurt people. Capital will always try to claw back any sort of power or capital they possibly can. Unfortunately, that's the way in which this world is structured. However, adhering to civil rights and human rights will always be more valuable to any individual, more than any sort of materialistic object or dollar value. Real, systemic adaptability or change will always be more valuable to every human over the material. Being a leftist is not about winning an argument or proving someone right or wrong, or being inherently right or wrong. It is about holding steadfast to your convictions, respectfully communicating your principles, and helping others who do not understand to come to an understanding to move forward together in some sense, while simultaneously getting shat on daily. It is not about looking cool or gaining some sort of capital or being better than your counterparts, or making an attempt at being annoyingly right. Be normal! Be normal. Being a leftist is about understanding and being understood. Don't forget and always remember, y'all, you don't need a bunch of money. You don't need a bunch of shit in your closet. You just need to know what you like. Peace and love. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and share this video. Hit the bell, notification bell. I'm just saying, the crusade did happen. I sound crazy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to offend nobody. Honestly. Probably. Most people treat me how I look. I'm intelligently not intelligent.